My name is Delilah Harper, and I'll never forget the day my world cracked open, not because it broke me, but because it set me free. I was standing in a sterile boardroom in downtown Seattle, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows that made you feel like you were floating above the Puget Sound, except I was sinking. My hands were steady, my slides were sharp, and my voice didn't waver as I pitched visionary insights, an AI forecasting tool I'd poured my soul into for months. It was my baby, sleek, precise, built to outsmart the clunky spreadsheets our analysts wrestled with every quarter. I'd spent nights in my Capitol Hill apartment, hunched over a thrift store laptop, coding it from scratch, dreaming of the day it would change how we worked. That boardroom was supposed to be my moment, and I grew up in a small Oregon town where my mom, a nurse, worked double shifts to keep us afloat. She'd come home exhausted, her scrubs smelling of antiseptic, and tell me, "Delilah, build something that matters." I carried that with me through college, through every late-night coding session, through every job where I was the only woman in the room. At 32, I'd been at this retail analytics firm for 5 years, grinding as a senior data analyst, always the one fixing someone else's mess. But I wasn't here for a pat on the back. I wanted to rewrite the game. The room was packed, executives, analysts, even Pam from HR, who always looked like she was one email away from a nervous breakdown. I walked them through the numbers. My tool cut forecasting time by 60%, boosted accuracy by 25%, and cost pennies compared to the $3 million system we were beta testing. I showed dashboards I'd mocked up, clean and intuitive, pulling live data from retail APIs. The silence was heavy, the kind that makes your palms sweat. Then David Kessler, RVP with a Stanford MBA and a smile sharp enough to cut glass, leaned back in his chair and let out a snort. "A pipe dream, Delilah," he said, his voice dripping with that fake charm he'd perfected. "We don't bet our budget on sci-fi experiments." The room erupted in nervous titters. Someone coughed. Pam shuffled her papers, like she could hide in them. Ryan Patel, the junior analyst who always had my back, shot me a quick, apologetic glance before staring at his notepad like it held the secrets of the universe. My cheeks burned, not from anger, but from the slow drip of humiliation, like coffee spilling down a white shirt. David pivoted to the next agenda item, pipeline investments, same old safe bets. While I stood there, my slides still glowing on the screen, my heart pounding in my throat. I'd seen this before. Growing up, I watched my mom get passed over for promotions because she didn't look the part. I'd felt it in college, when professors assumed I was better at note-taking than coding. And now, here was David, dismissing me like I was some intern with a PowerPoint and a prayer. But something shifted in that moment. The sting didn't break me. It lit a fire. I nodded, packed up my notes, and left the printed deck on the table like a forgotten relic. As the elevator doors closed, I felt a smile creep across my face, sharp and dangerous. "You want to call my work a pipe dream? Fine. I'd build a reality so big it'd choke you." That night, I sat in my tiny Capitol Hill apartment, the hum of Seattle traffic filtering through the window. My thrift store laptop whirred like it was begging for mercy, but I didn't care. I poured a glass of cheap Merlot, opened a new folder labeled Visionary Insights, and got to work. This wasn't about David or the boardroom anymore. It was about proving I could build something real, something that mattered. My mom's voice echoed in my head. Build something that matters. I wasn't going to let her down, but I'd always been careful. Maybe too careful. Growing up, I'd learned to keep my head down, to code in the shadows while others took credit. But this was different. I used free design tools to mock up a UI, scraped public retail data from APIs, and pieced together a neural model that could learn on the fly. Nothing touched my work laptop, not a single line of code. I bought a burner email, a $10 domain from a sketchy coupon site, and a Notion account under a fake name. I wasn't just building a tool. I was building a fortress. One slip, and the company's IT team, nosy and loyal to David, would slap me with a data security risk label, corporate code for "you're done." At work, I became a ghost. I'd show up, smile, and nod through meetings, but I was somewhere else. I started saying I was burned out when David or anyone else tried to pile on extra projects. It was the perfect excuse. Corporate America loves a burnout story. Nobody questions it. They just nod and move on, like it's contagious. Ryan was the only one who noticed something was up. One day in the stairwell, he caught me off guard. "Hey, Delilah," he said, his voice low. "That tool you pitched, it was legit. I ran some numbers based on your logic. If you ever need someone to, test it," he trailed off, nervous, but his eyes were bright. I raised an eyebrow, said, "I'll keep that in mind," and walked away, my heart racing. Someone else saw it. Someone else believed. Every night, after microwaving leftovers and pouring another glass of wine I couldn't afford, I'd dive back in. Python scripts, TensorFlow pipelines, sentiment scrapers I rigged from Reddit feeds. It was messy, chaotic, glorious. I tracked every penny. $15 for a server host, $10 for a new mouse because my old one kept sticking, $25 for pizza when I forgot to eat. My savings dwindled, but my soul? It was waking up. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was building something that could breathe, something that could change the game. And nobody, not even David Kessler, could stop me. The first time someone used Visionary Insights, I was sitting in my apartment, staring at my laptop, a slice of cold pizza in hand. I'd uploaded the MVP, minimum viable product, maximum midnight tiers, to a discount server, branded it with a cheesy logo I'd made in Canva, and called it a day. The slogan? Smarter forecasting, no crystal balls. I didn't expect much, just hoped a few freelancers might poke at it. Then, a Tacoma coffee shop signed up, uploading 6 months of sales data to predict holiday rushes. My tool spat out a forecast in under 2 minutes, accurate down to the pumpkin spice lattes. Their email came an hour later. "This is better than our $500 a month software." I read it 10 times, my heart doing cartwheels. More came. A Portland boutique used it to nail inventory for handmade candles. A guy in Spokane, who ran a chain of vape shops, figured out how to stock flavors based on local music festival schedules. My tools spotted patterns I hadn't even coded for, like a spike in energy drink sales tied to college midterms. I'd lie awake at night, refreshing my burner email, half expecting David to barge in with a cease and desist. But it was just me, my laptop, and a growing chorus of strangers who believed in what I'd built. Ryan became my secret weapon. He'd slip me ideas in the break room, ways to tweak the model, stress test it with public datasets. He never asked for credit, just grinned like he was in on a heist. A community started forming on a janky forum I built, where users swapped tips and begged for features like skew filters. I'd code until my eyes burned, fueled by caffeine and the thrill of watching my tool come alive. At work, I kept my mask on, burned out Delilah, too tired to lead projects, too quiet to cause trouble. Nobody suspected I was building an empire in my spare bedroom. While my tool was winning fans, the company was falling apart. The $3 million forecasting system David had championed was a disaster. It missed Q2 sales targets by 15%, couldn't handle real-time data, and required a 4-week onboarding that felt like a cult initiation. During one demo, a consultant bragged about seasonal trend alignment based on weather patterns. I scribbled in my notebook, "Rain predicts yoga mat sales?" Nobody laughed. They nodded like this was genius. David called it game-changing. I bit my tongue so hard it bled. Meanwhile, Visionary Insights was humming. One night, I fed it 3 months of Etsy data and watched it predict a surge in custom pet portraits. It was right, scarily right. At work, I sat through all-hands meetings where analysts scrambled to fix the company's broken system. Slack channels buzzed with phrases like emergency recalibration and data integrity gap. I sipped stale coffee, nodded, and said nothing, all while my phone pinged with new user signups. A wine shop in Bellevue called my dashboard freakishly accurate. I smiled into my mug. Feeling like a spy in my own life, I leaned into my invisibility. Once, I'd been the one leading whiteboard sessions, color-coding charts like a caffeinated artist. Now, I was burned out, mic off, camera off, typing great idea, in chat while fixing bugs for a pet store in Oregon. David didn't notice. Nobody did. And that was the point. My rebellion wasn't loud. It was a quiet blade, sharpening with every line of code, every new user, every email that said, "You're saving my business." The company was sinking, but I was building a lifeboat. Then the world noticed. A Seattle tech blog ran a piece titled, "The AI Tools Small Businesses Can't Stop Talking About." They called Visionary Insights intuitive, nimble, a middle finger to bloated software. My heart stopped. The screenshot was my dashboard, pulled from a user's LinkedIn post. I checked my burner email obsessively, half expecting a lawyer's name to pop up. Instead, I got a message from an investor. "I tested your demo. It's fast, clean, stupidly cheap. I'm in for $200,000 pre-seed. Let's talk." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking, wondering if this was a trap. Then came Apex Insights, our company's biggest rival. Sarah Nguyen, their VP, emailed for a demo. I'd met her once, at a pitch last year when David called my prototype cute. She'd asked a question about data, latency nobody else understood. Now she was circling. I set up the call with a fake alias, Clara Vance, no webcam, just audio through a $50 voice modulator. Sarah and her team grilled me, tossing around terms like recursive neural scaling. I threw back jargon I'd half-invented, keeping them guessing. They offered a 7-figure licensing deal. I said no, politely, my stomach in knots. "We're focused on community growth," I said, and hung up, then threw up in my sink. The fear didn't stop me. It electrified me. Someone saw what I'd built. Someone big. At work, whispers started. A VP mentioned Visionary Insights in a meeting, saying it was stealing our clients. David's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I kept my head down, my burnout act airtight, but inside, I was screaming. My tool wasn't just a side hustle anymore, it was a threat. And I was ready to wield it. The email came late one night, as I sat cross-legged on my couch, tweaking a new feature for resellers. Subject: Acquisition Proposal Urgent. Sender: Sarah Nguyen, Apex Insights. I opened it, expecting another licensing pitch. Instead, it was a 9-figure buyout offer, full equity conversion, a 3-year earnout, and a clause letting me stay anonymous if I wanted. My tea went cold as I read it again, then again, the numbers burning into my brain. This wasn't a dream. It was a grenade. I called my lawyer, a friend from college who worked startup deals. "Delilah, this is insane," he said, voice groggy but sharp. "You could retire tomorrow." But I didn't want to retire. I wanted to win. We negotiated hard, trimming the earnout terms, securing spots for Ryan and a part-time dev I'd hired from Boise, a guy who debugged my code at 3 a.m. for stock options. I signed the deal, my hands steady, but my heart pounding like a war drum. The press release would name me as the founder. No more hiding. I didn't sleep that night. I paced my apartment, replaying every moment. David's smirk, the boardroom silence, my mom's voice telling me to build something real. I thought about Ryan, risking his job to help me, and the users who'd trusted my janky MVP. This wasn't just my win, it was theirs. By morning, I was ready. The press release went live, and my phone exploded. I wasn't Clara Vance anymore. I was Delilah Harper, and I was about to walk into a firestorm. The boardroom felt smaller that morning, the air thick with panic. I walked in, for days left on my contract, and every eye locked on me. David sat at the head of the table, his lavender shirt damp with sweat, his fingers twitching like he'd forgotten how to sit still. The CEO, a gray-haired man who rarely spoke, held a printed copy of the press release, my name bolded in black ink. Visionary Insights acquired by Apex Insights for 9 figures. My heart thumped, but I stood tall, no pitch deck, no nerves, just me. The CEO looked at David, his voice low. "You said no to this." David opened his mouth, but nothing came out, just a choked sound, like a man watching his career implode. I didn't need to say much, but I wanted to. "I have 4 days left," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "Let me know how you'd like to use them." A few people coughed. Ryan in the corner hid a grin. I turned and walked out, not to my desk, not to the break room, but to the elevator. I didn't look back. I'd spent years in that building, fixing other people's mistakes, swallowing my pride, proving myself over and over. David's dismissal had been the final straw, but it wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, my mom, the kid I used to be, coding in a library because we couldn't afford a computer. It was about Ryan, who believed when nobody else did, and the users who saw what I saw. As the elevator doors closed, I felt lighter than I had in years. I was done proving myself to them. I'd already won. A week later, I stood in my new office in Seattle's Belltown, a corner space with views of the Sound. Whiteboards lined the walls, scribbled with roadmaps and feature ideas. My team, Ryan, the Boise dev, and a handful of new hires, was already buzzing, onboarding clients, prepping a beta launch in Chicago. Visionary Insights, now a subsidiary of Apex Insights, wasn't just a tool anymore, it was a movement. I wore the same black sweater I'd had on the night I coded the first prototype, sitting in a greasy diner booth, dreaming of this moment. It felt right. David? He was a ghost now. Maybe he got reassigned. Maybe he quit. I didn't care. His smirk, his pipe dream, jab, they were just noise, fading into the static of a life I'd left behind. The CEO's question lingered, though. How many other fantasies did we reject? I didn't have an answer for him, but I had one for myself. None. Not anymore. I'd built something that mattered, something that breathed, and it was mine. That I thought about my mom, working those endless shifts, telling me to keep going. I thought about the Tacoma coffee shop owner who emailed me at 2 a.m. saying my tool saved her holiday season. I thought about Ryan, risking everything to run numbers for me, and the users who turned my midnight code into their lifeline. This wasn't just my story, it was ours. And it was only the beginning. To everyone who's followed this wild ride, thank you. You've walked with me through the sting of rejection, the grind of late nights, and the thrill of proving them wrong. If my story hit you where it hurts or made you cheer, hit that subscribe button and join us. We're building something real here, one line of code, one dream, one fight at a time. Keep chasing your own truth, and I'll see you in the next one.